Air Force 8 Society.
Let's do it. Okay, so I first want to tell the story about how I just kept running into you, right? And so before my experience in Honor Guard, I was not online. I was actually kind of shy. Seriously. The Honor Guard career field changed my life. Like it really got me out of my comfort zone. It forced me out of my comfort zone. That was like the hardest job I ever had on so many levels. But it was also the most rewarding. They kind of go hand in hand. And so I had a lot of uncomfortable moments, a lot of self-growth, a lot of getting along with people, making things happen, emergencies, equipment. It's just so challenging. And I know Honor Guard meant a lot to you too. So I felt like it kind of went full circle when you got there, but we'll get to that in a sec. So I ended up being a 12 Outstanding Airman of the Year for Global Strike. Now before that, I had won nothing, right? Like it was nothing and then that. And that's when I met Chief Melvina Smith. I got to go on TDYs, and then I was invited to AFA. Now I felt really silly when I went there because I had been in for a hot minute and I never knew how epic these things were. AFA and AFSA. I was like, wow, really? I've been missing this my whole career. Like what? And I haven't missed one since. Like I make sure I go and I spread the word on that. But I saw you and I knew your sister. So there's already like weird coincidences, right? Like I went to high school.
I forgot about that, man. You know,
Keisha.
Yeah.
I went to high school. So like I went to add you on Facebook and I looked at our mutual friends and I said, I went to high school. Like, how is she a mutual friend?
Yeah.
So I hit her up. I said, hey, is this like an accident or something? Like, do you know this person? She's like, oh, my brother. I'm like, wait, what? These are like the weird coincidences. Like when my life started going in a positive direction, these strange coincidences kept happening to the point where I don't think they were a coincidence. I think it was, I finally got out of my comfort zone and I was on this, path of purpose essentially. And things start to happen when you're in that space. And so I was like, you know what? At that point, I was kind of becoming that risk taker and kind of like taking that chance. And I pitched to you I said how much of a fan I was, I kept coming up to you like, what's up? And I said, hey, you have to come out to the Whiteman Honor Guard. And I would assume, with all the bases and all the experiences you've had, it's probably hard to get you in a base honor guard, right? Because there's all these shiny things, there's planes, there's this and that. So to get you in a base honor guard, I understood would probably be challenging. Yeah. Luckily, my command chief was Katie McCool, and she was all about it. And so after telling you that, and then she was all about it, I feel like in a matter of a couple months, you were in our honor guard. And I invited all past honor guardsmen. I left it open for all of them to come. And so a ton of people came. We had a shirt for you. We had a signed photo for you. We did the chant with you. Yeah. We got you so fired up. But I'll tell you, I had a little mini panic attack because when you first I had plan A and plan B.
That's why his hair's so tall.
Plan A was we're going to show them the mission. We're going to show them what we're all about. And plan B was, I'm going to get you in this room with like the most fired up airman I know, and we're going to get after it. And so plan A, we're going through it, and honest to God, you look bored. I thought you fell asleep one time. I was like, and you're like, And I was like, oh my God, I will not let this fail. I have come this far. I will not let this fail.
Yeah.
So I said, plan B, rally up. They were like, let's get it.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I remember all those pictures I put up.
Yeah.
I did that just for you. I made that the day before.
Wow.
It looked epic.
Yeah.
That was actually a panic move. There was no, and those pictures faded like 2 days later. Like they fell off the wall and stuff. Like they literally just fell on the ground. But anyways, we had you in that room. You met the airmen, and Chief Pinheiro was there. He was prior honor guard. You were prior honor guard. And then once you talked to them, the whole vibe changed. You just lit up. So at first it seemed like you couldn't wait to get out of there. And by the end of it, you didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
You did not want to leave. The airmen were all fired up. You were fired up. Everyone was smiling. And I remember like the execs like, we got to go. Like, LRS isn't, whatever. Well, we kept you there late.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that day, honestly, God changed my life. That day changed my life because I was told there's no way you would ever be in that honor guard. We're in Whiteman. We're in the middle of nowhere. There is no way Chief Wright is going to be in our honor guard. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And you were there. And my wife was there, too, to make it even more special.
I remember that. Yeah. So maybe 2 lessons, I think, from that story, man. The first is, don't let anybody tell you, especially with respect to, senior leaders, right? Because there's a lot of people that are paid, or at least believe they're paid to speak on our behalf. Oh, he don't like this. She doesn't like that. She won't go for this. She won't want to do this and whatnot. And like today, you don't have to ask them, right? You can jump on Facebook, or you can dial my cell phone, or you can say, hey, man, you got K. Wright's number, because I want to ask him if he can do this. And then you just ask the person directly. Now, that probably goes against, what your chief or whoever would tell you, follow the chain of command and blah, blah. Fine. If you want to do that, that's great. But you're probably going to get it'll never happen answer, or more likely you'll get, we'll check on it, and then you won't hear anything back. So I think the first lesson is, if you want to know something from a senior leader, just ask them. Not unfortunately, they're people now. They have people around them, for a reason, to help filter some of the stuff. But you guys have enough credibility that you can say, hey, man, I really need to talk to Joe or Toby or whomever. And then the second lesson, I think, is whenever you are hosting, whether it's a senior leader or your mother-in-law, right? You should figure out what it is they like and how they like things and how they want to see. You might have a fancy, I'm going to go out and buy this fancy espresso machine, but hey, I just like, a Keurig with a pod. That's it. I don't need all of that. And so, for me, I was in the honor guard as a young guy, base honor guard. I spent lots of times in honor guard rooms of all sizes. I've seen lots of. So what's most appealing to me is, man, let me just talk to some of these airmen, right? I'd love to see them maybe put on a show or something, but I'll get fired up if I talk to them. But going through, and I don't remember what Plan A was or what I fell asleep on.
I know you don't remember.
But and so I think that's just a couple of things to think about, man. But I've never forgotten. I remember that very well. I remember having a really good conversation with Aaron, sharing some of my experiences and taking some questions from them. And
absolutely, we all felt really special that day.
Yeah, good. No,
really,
I appreciate it, man. I'll tell you another thing, man. I appreciate you guys. I'm tell you what I like about y'all, man. Y'all are dogged. Y'all like, hey, man, we're going to do this podcast.
Yeah.
You can walk around and pretend like you don't see us if you want to. But
I could FaceTime someone that we both have a mutual friend.
Right. Every corner I turn around, man, I come out the shower, and one of them is just like.
Well, it's Josh. It's not me. We got to have boundaries. I just watch when you sleep.
Like,
hey, I have a question. Coincidentally, we did the podcast, and it's a great episode. I think episode number 6. You recommended 3 books. One was, 2 of the 3 were The Alchemist, Old Man, and the Sea. I did a podcast with Tobin yesterday. He just said that's one of the books he recommended was Old Man and the Sea. I did a podcast today with Shane Pilgrim. He recommended the Alchemist. And I'm like, man, that's crazy, man. K. Wright did this like 6 years ago. You guys are still in his notes. But anyway, but since you've retired, I'm joking. They didn't steal his notes, but you've been retired for over 3 years now, roughly 3 years. What are some books now that you'd recommend for people that are maybe post-retirement or something that's really helped you move forward?
Yeah, the number 1 book I recommend right now, man, is Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers.
Fantastic.
I think it's an amazing book, and I recommend the audiobook.
The audiobook is fire.
It's fire, right? It's kind of like a podcast / audiobook, but man, it really opened my eyes to some things that I suspected, that I think some things about how we think we know people, but we really don't. And the mistakes that we make and whatnot. So that's an amazing book, man. Another book I recommend is called The Advice Trap by a guy named Michael Bungay Stanier. He's an executive coach. And the subtitle is something similar to How to Stay Curious a Little Longer. because when we are all mentoring and coaching and trying to help the people that work for us or that look up to us, we're so quick to give advice. We're so quick to fall into the advice trap of, oh, all you need to do is this, as opposed to staying curious, asking more questions and what else, and tell me more about this, and or whatever phraseology you use, let's double click on that, or what have you. Let's peel back the onion, but just being more curious and asking more questions instead of giving people playbooks, right? And so I really like those two as, I think, recommendations.
Awesome. So I got to speak with General Goldfein, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
He came on. And it all was for me meeting him for 30 seconds and doing an elevator pitch.
Man, JD is cool in the motherfucker, man. Because he goes by Just Dave now, right?
He does.
You can call him Dave. Well,
Just Dave.
Just Dave.
JD, yeah.
Just Dave, yep. So, I talked to him a lot about you. That was part of our episode.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is going to be about him. What are some things that, because he's a tremendous person, right? I mean, he's just built different. Mm-hmm. And he has a really interesting, everything about his life is fascinating.
Yeah.
He's very philosophical. And I'm just curious, what are some of those things that you took away from being so close to someone like that?
Yeah. I think the number one thing I took away from him was that you can be amazing and normal at the same time, right? You can be an amazing human being with a warfighter spirit, with tons of experience, and highly regaled by everybody around you, officer and enlisted alike. You could be a superstar, but still be a regular person. Still be the person that will crack a joke that I could call and say, "Hey, boss, what you doing, man? Let's have a drink and a cigar. Why don't you spend the night tonight? Because I don't want you driving back home. Have your PSD, drop you off, whatever. I would spend the night at his house. He would spend the night at my house. And still to this day, right, if I go to San Antonio, he's like, "Hey, K-Wright, come out and stay." And we make steaks and all that type of stuff. But he's so down to earth. He's super intelligent, right? He is an amazing people person. All the skills that you would think a 4-star general, a senior executive, whether it's in government, and now he's transitioning and is doing a lot of great stuff. He has all that, but he also has the common touch that he could come in this room, sit here. He wouldn't be uncomfortable. He wouldn't make you uncomfortable. Or he could walk out there with all these airmen and nobody would, maybe initially people would be like, "Oh, that's the general," but pretty quickly they'd be laughing and high-fiving and drinking and having a good time. So that's what I learned from him, man, is that, you don't have to be stuffy. You don't have to, and you don't have to fake it. You don't have to pretend, He was kind of like me. If he didn't know something, he'd say, "Shit, I don't know." But
sounds like he's very humble.
He's very humble.
Right? That like everything you're describing to me, like that's the word that I keep hearing in my head.
If he came in here, right, or if he walked out there and you said, "Yeah, my dad was in the Air Force," he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'll call him, FaceTime him right now." And then he'd get on and be like, "Hey man, I'm here with your kid. That's crazy. He's doing great." And he's just a great person.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I want to follow up on a question from before, a lighter question. And you've had some time, this is the sequel, right? On the last podcast, I asked you if there was a movie made about your life. What would the name of that movie be, and then who would play you? So I want to ask that question again, but we're going to add who would play. So also again, who would play you? Who would play Todd Simmons? And the only answer is The Rock. And then who would play? Who would play Mike Perry? And then who else should we throw in there, Josh? And who would play General Goldfein?
Yeah.
Or excuse me, JD.
Yeah. What did I say the movie would be?
I don't remember. I have to go back and listen.
Oh man, if there was a movie made about me, what would it be called? Unlikely.
Okay.
And
is that the name of like your book?
No.
You're just dropping that now?
No.
Okay, just checking.
The name of my book is Heavy as the Head.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that based off the Marlowe quote from The Wire?
Yeah, but that's based off.
Okay.
The kind of, I think it's Shakespeare.
All right. So who would play you? Who would play
Denzel Washington would have to play me, man.
Which are we talking like John Q?
John Q.
Are we talking-
or the Equalizer.
Okay. So we're not talking like you mother.
Not Training Day Denzel.
Okay.
Not Training Day Denzel.
I mean, yeah, that's next level.
That's for the third of the trilogy.
Yeah.
The trilogy.
Yeah.
And
And then all right, so who would play Todd Simmons? Who would play Mike Perry?
I don't know about Mike Perry, Todd Simmons. I guess The Rock, like you said.
The Rock, yeah. It's only a logical choice, right?
Mhm.
And J.D. Goldfiend, man, would be like Al Pacino or
I have a recommendation.
what's my man named?
De Niro?
De Niro.
I have a third recommendation. I can't. It's so obvious to me. Clearly, Ryan Gosling. And when
Ryan
I see,
Gosling?
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
see General Goldfiend and Ryan Gosling, it's like who's him?
You know what? On our podcast, I think I did ask him that. I'm gonna have to go back and I'll tell you what he said. But it's kind of strange that you asked him that because I'm pretty sure I asked General Goldfiend that same question. So I'll follow up with you on what his actor was. And your homework is see if his answer matches what he told you all those years ago.
Yeah, I have another follow-up question. You mind if yeah. All right, so what new friendship over the past 2 to 3 years as something that's just a new friendship that's really become like a great friendship, but something new?
Yeah, something new friendship-wise.
Yeah.
I would say Abby Scott.
Oh, yeah,
So
sharp
Abby,
guy.
yeah, is young chief in the Space Force that's doing amazing stuff.
Yeah, rising star.
And so I'm watching him there do that, but more importantly, he's a golfer. We golf together a couple times a week. He's probably supposed to be working some of those times, but and we travel along with a bunch of other guys, but we talk all the time. I'm really intrigued by his intelligence and what he brings to the table, and he has me spending unnecessary money on fucking Jordan golf shoes, man. Like every week, I almost blocked him a couple of times.
It's an investment.
Every time
It's an
a new
investment.
pair of Jordan golf shoes comes out,
Yeah.
I get a text from him, and with just like, and I'm like, hey man, I'm blocking you, dude. Like, I don't want them, I don't need them, but I just ordered them. And they'll be here Thursday. like it's bad.
That's great. What do you got, Josh?
So I'm going to take it in a different direction. All right. So obviously you've had a lot of time to think about the good, the bad, the ugly, things you were proud of, things you wish you could go back and redo. What are the things that you feel like you would have done differently or you feel like you might have left on the table?
Ooh. So on the one hand, I live with no regrets, right? I did what I did. I don't get do-overs, blah, 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 blah. But if I'm being honest, I think 3 things I would have done different. One, I would have, from the beginning, I would have been dogged about getting rid of the entire enlisted promotion system. WAPS testing, EPRs, whatever. I would have wiped it off the map, like dropped a nuclear bomb on it. And baby, bathwater, house, tub, all of it would have just left. And I would have,
Basically ripped the Band-Aid off, right?
Rip it all off, right? And fought to have someone from outside the Air Force design us a system that makes sense and that works and that's whatever. But like everybody else, I tinkered around the edges. Let's change this. Maybe we fix that. Whatever. I would have paid more attention to the military justice stuff as it relates to young African American males. So right when I was about to retire, that report resurfaced. It's not like I had never seen the report. It had been a few years before I read it, but it resurfaced, saying that, young black males in the military, in the Air Force were receiving, NJP at 50% the rate their counterparts, white counterparts, for the same offenses. And so I would have, I think, dug deeper into that and tried to figure out, like, what I have my, theory about some of the reasons that exist. But, and then I think I would have invested more in the things that we needed for our females, making sure they had the right gear, because for years It was whether you're a defender or a pilot, just wear the male stuff, and you'll be fine. And not just that, right? But opportunities for them to advance and excel and have the same opportunities as me, you, and anybody else. Because whether we want to believe it or like to believe it, there's still a lot of bias in our systems, and because and it's tied together, right? Sometimes because coming up, we don't make sure that women have the same opportunities. They get burnt out, quicker, and decide, hey, I'm going to do something else if I got to put up with this stuff. Because many times throughout their careers, especially in career fields where women, there are only a few women. Sometimes they just adjust to the stuff that men do and say, and eventually it wears on. Or they get so hardened to it that it becomes part of them, and it doesn't serve them well when they get in leadership positions. So I think, overall, I think instead of, our philosophy was we're going to just hit a bunch of singles, right? We're not going to try to hit a home run. But also that means like I'm just, bam, hitting, you're all over the place instead of finding, hey, man, there's 3 things that are really, really important. Let me just focus on that.
I can see how it'd be really hard. I mean, you're getting pulled in every direction.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone who brings an issue to you, that's the issue, and to decipher, truly what needs the most TLC, I can see would be really challenging.
And the system defeats you, man.
Really?
Yeah, man. The government, man. Trying to fix all that stuff. You know how hard it is in the Air Force to fight through all of the bureaucracy and red tape and all that type of stuff. So you almost get relegated to, well, I almost feel like there's really no chance for me to rip the Band-Aid off the promotion system, because I'm meeting so much resistance and wasting so much time, and there's so many, people embedded in these places that are, fighting me, and I don't even know they're fighting me. So let me just find some easy wins and get some stuff that I can actually fix. Especially when, in the Air Force, in the military, command terms they're short, man. The Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force is typically 4 years. I did about 3.5. But most of the jobs that senior leaders have are 2 years, right? And it goes by quick, so you don't have a whole lot of time to waste. And you can easily get defeated, right? Especially in the building.
You're kind of in your own little bubble in there.
That's a lot of bullshit in there, right? That's kind of what it is. It's it's like, hey, this is simple. Let's just do it. And then there's 17 other people who have to chime in, and you don't know that they're chiming in. And they've been retired for 10 years, and it didn't work back then, so they don't believe in it now. And what was also a little bit frustrating, what I think I would have appreciated more if the people who opposed some of the changes we were trying to make would have come to me and say, okay, right, this is a valiant effort, but we're not going to do it, and it's not going to work. Don't waste your time. But instead, I think people would say, oh wow, that's a great idea. Like, yeah, just give it to me. No, we'll work on it. We'll get back to you. And then they throw it in the trash or put it somewhere. They're like, he'll be retired in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So, you think you're making progress, you're waiting on stuff to happen, you're out. And you know me, man, I was always out ahead of myself, right? Ahead of my skis. It's like, yeah, we're about to get this. They're like, what? We about to get what? Like, I'll just be out there promising stuff, man. And because I'm thinking this is an easy win, right? This is.
So it almost sounds like it was, you hear the position, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. You assume that comes with a tremendous amount of power. And what it sounds like to me is it was much more like convoluted than you expected.
Yeah, it is. And that's all of them, right? That's to include Chief of Staff, right? So it's not just Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. You think Chief of Staff has the magic wand, and when he says, do this, it just happens. But even at that level, there's a layer of bureaucracy and red tape, and his or her time is limited as well. And so people will wait you out. I saw that at every level.
I never even thought of that, waiting them out.
I saw it at every level, man. I saw it from the time I was a group superintendent, wing command chief, NAF. There was a group of, typically civilian that are retired or what have you, that have been in place for a long time, will be in place for a long time. And their philosophy was, hey, you're just like the last guy. Great idea.
Yeah.
Rah. Let me see. Yeah, we wait him out. We'll
Wait.
give him a little bone here and there. And but I think that comes with any job, right? It doesn't matter where you are, what corporate, non-profit, right? Power is limited, and it really should be, right? And I think understanding how to navigate the systems is just part of being a leader, and it's part of the checks and balances. Because if all leaders were untethered to just do whatever they want to do, some people use their powers for good and some people don't, right? So so I didn't like it, but I kind of understand it, and I dealt with it not so well, I guess.
I mean, from our observations, you did fantastic. So no one out on the outside would know that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we saw you, it was like you just gave people hope.
Pays to be the boss. What's the James Brown song that used to come out too?
Cost to be the boss.
It costs to be the boss. Yeah. Hey, so if there was a giant billboard that you could place anywhere in the world with your message on it, and everyone had to see, everyone had to read it, where would you place that billboard, and what would you want that message to say?
I'd place it somewhere on the internet, on the Google splash page.
I've asked that question probably 100 times over various podcast episodes. No one's ever said that. I get Times Square a lot. I get a lot of different, like Mount Rushmore, but no one's ever said that. Because everybody goes to Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody opens up their browser, and typically
that's good.
First thing that comes up is Google. And I think the message would be, you're enough. Because I know sometimes people struggle with, am I enough? Am I good enough? Am I, handsome enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I smart enough? Can I do this? And sometimes people just need reinforcement, for others and from others, and sometimes from yourself, right? Sometimes we need to be able to look in the mirror and say, I am enough, right? And I don't have to prove myself to you or you or you or you. I'm confident in who I am and what I can do. I can do this, right? And that's not people don't need rah, cheer you on type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, and I talk to a lot of people who sometimes outwardly they use those words, and sometimes their actions and other things they say lead me to believe that, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe this is not right for me. Maybe I didn't deserve this life or promotion or what have you. And I think, I want people to understand and believe that, hey man, you're enough. It doesn't mean that we don't all have things to work on, and we should all be able to look in the mirror and work on ourselves, get a little bit better every day about with whatever it is we aspire to do or be. But sometimes that reminder is a good thing. So
I have a miscellaneous question that's just kind of a fun question.
Sure.
Maybe two. But what purchase of $100 or less has most impacted your life? And I used to say $50, but inflation.
$100 or less.
Yeah.
Man. I'm trying to think. I buy a lot of shit.
Something to clean the Jordan golf shoes.
Yes.
Brush.
Oh man, that's it. I bought it. I was in the. You know how you walk through the mall and there's always somebody, mostly people trying to sell you something to put on your face or something like. There's always a dude that's selling makeup wipes, so I don't know what it is. And there's always a sneaker dude with sneaker cleaner stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, I don't want your $45 mix of Dawn dish detergent or whatever.
Yeah.
And but one day I was like, you know what, man, this dude, he was a young guy, and I was like, he's hustling, he's trying to make an honest dollar. He could be out, selling drugs or something. Let me just,
Yeah.
And I bought some of that stuff, man. I bought
Good for you.
He hustled me, right? I'm like, well, how much is this? He's like, oh, it's like $65. I'm like, dude, $65? Like, that's almost, the price of the shoes, man. I was paying $120 for the shoes. And so, yeah, I bought some of that, man, and it's been great. Like, I wear not this particular pair, but, I wear Jordans with tuxedos and stuff. Now.
Yeah.
I'll wear some dress shoes tomorrow, but I typically wear, Reebok Classics or Jordans or Chucks with suits and tuxedos.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
I love it. I have one last question for you. All right. So, what are you world class at that people might not know? Second part of that question, is it a Denzel Washington training day impression?
No, I don't have any. It's not that, right? I don't know if I'm world class at anything, man. I think I'm.
Or just like a skill or something that.
Yeah, I think I'm one of those, jack of some trades, master of none. But if I had to say, what I think I'm most skilled at, I think is understanding, motivating, encouraging, inspiring people. Right. So I feel like, that's my strong suit. That's where, I make my money in terms of having a real impact on people is I can read when you're doing good. I can read typically when you're not doing so well. And so I love being around people. I love helping people. I love coaching and mentoring and all that good stuff. I'll tell you what I'm not good at. I'm not good at anything mechanical. I'm trying to be better. Like I installed my own Google Nest doorbell and camera and shit like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, but most things, if it's got anything that's mechanically inclined, like sometimes like when I'm buying a car, man, I open the hood just because I think it's the right thing to do, but I have no clue what.
It's just looking the part, right?
Just
like
looking at it.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think I can find I know how to do the battery, and I could probably find a little oil thing, but other than that, I don't know. I don't even know why I open this hood, right?
Okay, there's something I always wanted to ask you, and you may not be able to answer this. You may not, but we'll see. I've heard on more than one occasion you tell a story about how you were really tested. I mean, your anger was through the roof, but you never went into detail. I want to say you were in a deployed setting, like you were somewhere overseas, and someone really upset you and angered you, and you would use that as like a lesson to people on like keeping your cool and not letting people really get to you. But you never really went into too much detail on the story. Now that you're retired, are you able to expand on that at all, or is it need to be left to be vague?
No, man, I could. I don't know why I didn't expand on it back then, right? Because it was, I was deployed. I was in Afghanistan. I was the senior Air Force person in Afghanistan, enlisted. And there was a guy from another service who was the senior enlisted person for all of Afghanistan, right? So he was the senior person for the country. I was a senior enlisted person for them. And, he had a reputation for, being an a-hole, not liking Air Force people for what I would consider was a good reason. Some of his teammates had been in a strafing incident with some A-10s, and he had lost some of his teammates, right? So he had a kind of a natural grudge against the Air Force. So when I first got to the country, he and I thought, oh, he's not so bad, right? I could see, he's a bit of a, asshole, but I know a lot of people like that, and it was fine, right? We as a matter of fact, the day I landed in Bagram, it was raining. We couldn't get a helo. He called his boss's PSD team, and we drove from Bagram to Kabul, which was unheard of. When I showed up, my boss was like, "You did what?" Like, bro, like, and then, man, it probably took about 2 months. One day, he saw me out on the base, and he said, "Hey, come see me when you get a chance." I said, "No problem." A couple of days passed, right? I was busy. I was flying all around the country, visiting airmen and whatnot. So the next call he makes is to my boss, who was a 2-star at the time, and he says, then my boss calls me in and says, "Hey, this guy's calling me like Like, what's his deal? So I called him up and I said, hey man, what can I do for you? You called my boss. He was like, I told you to come see me 2 days ago, and it's been 2 days, and da 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 da. And if my boss called your boss and asked to see him, it wouldn't take 2 days. I said, well, that's true, but my boss works for your boss. I don't work for you, and I got shit to do. Like, so what is it that you actually want, right? And because in the at least in my mind, in the Air Force and in life, like we're all E9s, and I don't work for you, so if I get to you, I do. If I whatever. Long story short, that started the down. We went into the basement. We went into the gutter. On the phone that day, and I hung up the phone, and his office was a stone's throw away from mine. I hung up the phone, and then I walked to his office. Like, okay, now what was you saying? Like what? And I wasn't ready to fight or anything, but I'm like, hey, we might as well just talk this out. And then it just got, it got uglier and uglier and uglier to the point where we stopped speaking to each other. And one day we were walking by each other, and I didn't speak. And in this particular service, culturally, I guess it's a bad thing to not speak to a senior person. And so he stops, and he turned around, and he said, hey, don't you ever walk by me without speaking again. So I turned around and said, fuck you. Like, I don't have to speak to you, blah, 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 going on. And I just started, like, I had a bit of a rage, out-of-body experience.
Yeah. And, dang.
And, so we're standing out in this, and it was a very public place on the installation, and we're yelling and cussing. And we were kind of face-to-face, like almost like a boxing thing. And I was like, I should do it, man. I should just, do it. And, something told me, just see this through. It'll be fine and whatnot, man. But, yeah, I think dealing with that dude, man, almost gave me an ulcer, man.
Okay, the story was epic. Thank you for sharing that. I never heard all those details.
Yeah.
The times that I was around you, it was much more vague. Yeah. And so to hear it in detail, I mean, that is a brutal situation to be in when your own teammate is your biggest enemy.
Yeah. And I think, from what I heard, the dude, he's retired now. Obviously, I'm retired, but he probably still doesn't like me. I don't like him, and that's fine. That's okay. Sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Well, we like you.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Josh, I was just going to wrap it up.
Definitely.
Because I know a lot of people out there want to see you, but we like you. We're thankful for you. Just thank you again so much for being kind to us and just for your compliments and just encouraging us, right? Because we were able to connect this week, and we talked about some of the hurdles that we have to face with, and it's people just not sure what podcasting is or just social media. And there's a lot of influence that could be had with this. But again, just thanks for removing the bureaucracy and, just saying, hey, just go for it, guys.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you guys, man. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for tracking me down and holding me to it. And thanks for all the great work that you do, man. Because I think you not only do, you're able to deal with some difficult, some challenging, some fun topics, but I think you help provide exposure to a lot of people, right, that otherwise might not get this type of exposure. And so I think it's a really good thing, man. I'm proud of you guys.
Thank you. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And I want to tell you something. My parting final thoughts is that I never paid attention to the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force until you. And the influence and impact that you had is tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. It literally got me excited and fired up about staying in, about making things better. And for one person to have that impact is unreal. It's unbelievable almost. And I just want to thank you for getting out of your comfort zone and leading the charge in a way that has never been done in our history.
Yeah. I think the one thing I will say, though, to something you just mentioned, it's probably unfair to say one person, right? So, I was obviously the face and received most of, if not all of the credit for all the stuff. But, man, I had an amazing team. Chris McBride, Manny Pinheiro, Karen Marshall, Mika Dixon, like they were Jamie,
Tin Man.
Tin Man, Harry, like these guys were amazing, and we still like family today. So I owe a lot of credit to the people that I was able to, the team that we built, that really, honestly, had a lot of power in terms of holding me accountable, saying, "No, man, that's stupid. That doesn't make a lot of sense." That would make me do things that I didn't want to do. For example, I hated going to the Hill to testify and to see congressmen and senators, and they would be like, "Yeah, you can hate it, but you're going. So suck it up and get your ass over there, right?" And so a lot of times, man, our teams and the people around us don't receive enough credit. I want to make sure that those folks that are still teammates and like family to me today really get the credit for a lot of the work that we did.
Absolutely. Every time I saw you guys, family was exactly what I saw.
Yeah.
Every single time I saw you around them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well,
all right. Well, I'm going to drink and smoke. So
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get after it.